All right, we are live here on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now YouTube and Facebook pages. I think one of the two isn't working, but I can't see which one. Okay, Facebook isn't live. Let's try that one more time. So, what we're going to talk about on this little live stream, and I'll try to check your comments, although I'm driving in snow, so bear with me if I don't see your comment. Keep them short, use some punctuation so I can quickly identify. The things we're going to talk about on this here little live chat as I drive to Montreal. The Penguins locker room was a little bit of a unique and different place on Tuesday night. Some saltiness, some. I presented what Tristan Jarry said as straight as I could. However, I think most people looked at the comments and were like, "Oh, okay." There was certainly some pushback on how Jarry phrased his performance and the team's performance. So we'll get into all of that. Also, I know you want to talk about Jesse Puljujarvi. Free Jesse Puljujarvi! I get it, okay. But I'll get into Puljujarvi, Nolan Jarry, why Sullivan is making the decision that he's making, as well as what we can expect from this roster and this lineup going forward. It's a little bit of a hodgepodge. There's potential for both success, but also potential for huge failure, to be quite honest. So we're going to do all of that, okay? So let's start with last night. I asked Chris Letang, if they had their best energy. I said, did you guys have your best legs? He's like, "What, do you mean our energy?" I said, yeah. He's like, no, our energy was fine. It's our demeanor. And listen, all season long, I feel like we've been unpacking that issue. And this is the second time Letang has kind of hit at the team's attitude, mental state, demeanor, all of those things. This is, he's hit at them a few times. I think for good reason. The curious thing is that he's doing it, and the tone of voice in which he's doing it. I sense a little frustration on the veterans part. Like, we've been through this. We know how to do this. Why are we soft when it matters? Why is it so difficult for us to play 60 minutes? And I think those sorts of things are creeping in. I don't want to call them doubts. I think it's more about frustration. Oh, shit. Was coming up on a salt truck. I wonder why traffic was slowing so badly. Probably not the best time to be doing a live chat, but we'll get through it. You may have to just bear with me a couple of times as I stop or pause the chat to get around slower cars or, people who are afraid to drive in wet weather. They're pre-salting the roads because it's not yet freezing and not really yet snowing, although I can see my windows behind me. Can't quite tell that. Anywho, I do sense that locker room exasperation or frustration. You can spin this two different ways. You can say they've won 5 of 7, or you can say they've played 2 terrible games in their last 3, which followed their 4-game win streak. I think both are valid, and how they handle Montreal, Ottawa will define if that 4-game winning streak and the resounding win over Toronto, if that was a dead cat bounce or if that was legitimate. I'd like to tell you one way or the other. But the thing is, this team has been so maddeningly inconsistent, almost self-destructive, self-defeating, that you don't know. So let me kind of hit into the roster decisions here. Because obviously I'm not going to do an hour and a half today in these conditions. I'm going to keep the questions too. I'm going to address the one thing that you guys are going to drive me nuts with this Jesse Puljujarvi stuff. I am going to explain this as clearly as I can, and hopefully enough of you listen where I don't have to deal with Jesse Puljujarvi every day, like I did with Alex Nylander. Hello. Like I did with Daniel Sprong before that, and some other prospects who didn't take that step. What Sullivan is doing with his fourth line, he's got Nola Jarry, a left-handed face-up, or is it Jarry? I'm terrible with hands. One guy's right-handed, one guy is left-handed between Hayes and Jarry. So his fourth line is always set for the defensive zone. If one gets kicked out of the face-off, or if the face-off's on this dot or that dot, they have a very competent face-off guy ready to take it, and he doesn't have to mix and match his fourth line. Sullivan loves this. This is why Jeff Carter played last year, because Carter was the right-handed guy. It is what it is. You might say, well, Puljujarvi's better than this player, that player. And it's debatable. I understand why you've fallen in love with Puljujarvi. He's big, he can straight fast in a straight line anyway. And he's finished a few chances this year. But there are significant drawbacks to his game as well. Against the Rangers, how many shots did Puljujarvi have? 0. I don't know that he had a shot attempt, quite frankly. And that was with third line duty. So maybe we should dial back on the whole Jesse Puljujarvi is the savior and he needs to be in the lineup every night kind of stuff. Because the reality is, for the roles the Penguins have to fill, right now he is the 13th best option. And I do agree with Sullivan on that. Puljujarvi has some value. If the available roles change, then the discussion changes. And I hate to pile on the defense. Good God Almighty. When Marcus Pettersson has a bad night, you can see exactly how bad or how porous that team can be. And Marcus got caught between sagging back and trying to absorb the speed rush, or standing firm and disrupting it. He got caught in between a couple of times. One cost them a goal, and another almost cost them a goal. I think Marcus Pettersson has earned enough in credit where a couple of bad decisions, you're not beating him up or pounding your chest and wailing that Pettersson should be out of the lineup. If Colorado is a good team, they're fast, they know how to attack, especially the defensemen, especially coming across that blue line. They know what they're doing. They're professional assassins. How's that? So the other defensemen, we're getting, I think, swallowed up by the attack as well as by the forecheck. And this is going to be an ongoing problem for the Penguins. Like, how do you fix this? I don't know if you can hear my windshield wipers. My windshield is dry, but there's enough moisture hitting it, like from the snowflakes, that the sensors were like, turn your windshield wipers on. I digress. Like Grizzly last night gives up a breakaway by muffing a puck at the blue line, and Graves kind of did the same thing, and The only other person I would give a pass to, I actually thought Letang had a pretty good game. But Owen Pickering made one mistake and, kind of a turnover that led to Logan O'Connor's breakaway. I give Pickering a pass as well for this reason. He also, did you see him blanket Nathan MacKinnon a couple of times, especially that one in the first period? He just kind of went after MacKinnon. And I think it even surprised MacKinnon a good bit, that here's this rookie playing so aggressively and using his reach and stepping into him, nullifying what became a one-on-one. Yeah, Pickering took the delay of game penalty. That's bad luck. Every defenseman's had that happen to them. And also that technically it was his turnover, but I blamed Letang more for that Logan O'Connor breakaway, because Pickering was already under pressure when he gets the pass. It was not the, kind of lateral on the blue line. That was not a pass to make. So, and then you kind of factor that with Tristan Jarry giving up a pair of softies in the first period that the Penguins have to dig out from. It's a bad game. And yet, they almost pulled themselves out of it. If the power play last night didn't look like, like some brown snow, they very well might win that game. They just needed one good power play to build the momentum, to get things going, and they never did get that. Colorado attacked. They stacked the blue line, and Carlson, Grzelcyk, Letang never did figure it out and get good zone entries. I really should not be doing this. I'm getting further north here on I-79, and yeah, it's getting a little bit bad. I might stop sooner than later today. But once the power play never had zone entries, that emboldens the penalty kill, emboldens the other team. Do we talk about Jarry yet, or do you need me to talk about Tristan Jarry? I don't think you do. I think you saw it. He said he played Nikushkin's goal too aggressively. I think most of us would say the exact opposite, that he was sitting in the net. Very much the same thing on that 2-on-1 that MacKinnon scores. But Jarry was so deep in the net. Graves had stepped up to take away the pass, leaving shooter and goalie didn't challenge to take away the net. Graves actually played that properly. As I say it out loud, noodling through it, that was when Grzelcyk muffed on the blue line, creating that 2-on-1 with MacKinnon and Rantanen. Yeah, Jarry was deep in his net too much. He didn't get over to cut off Rantanen's goal, which he was there, basically. So, a lot of people took umbrage with his comments after the game. And I'm going to paraphrase them here. And he's saying, it's hard to play when they're getting behind us and getting behind me. I can't see them behind me when I'm looking forward. All right, so I'm going to dive into the questions here. Hey, Dan, drive safe. Yeah, everyone, keep it short, keep it pithy, just get right to your point. I don't really have time to read. The one thing I see, it's been over the years, man, Big Joe, you wrote a whole damn paragraph. Short, one lines. The Pens can play so well, but always fall back into the funk where they look uninterested and, unless 87, 71, 58 bring the energy. There still is a bit of that. And I suppose, Big Joe, that's what happens to, and I hate to say this is what happens to bad teams. They can get hot, but then they regress and they go back and forth. I don't think the Penguins are a bad team per se, but I think they have to work too hard to be a good team. Does that make sense? the energy required to be their best selves is concentrated amongst too few players who are too old to do it consistently. And so you start looking to other players, and when they don't do it, there is something to that. Last night, Colorado took a few liberties, just like Toronto did, and you would have liked to have seen somebody start, toss some mitts. You would have liked to have seen somebody from the Penguins, not named Sidney Crosby, pop somebody in the grill to bring some energy. Yeah, it is a point. Okay, Ivan says, is there any D-man in the system who can substitute Grizzly right now? I can tell you don't read Pittsburgh hockey now, Ivan. Shame on you. No, there isn't. Owen Pickering is already here. There are some depth D-men in Wilkes-Barre. Sebastian Aho, I think, is still injured. He's depth. Philip Kral is, again, I think Kral has 2 NHL games experience. Mac Hollowell has 6 games NHL experience. Mac Hollowell is the guy. He's right-handed. So I guess we're talking about Grizzly, Ivan. We could talk about a righty to fill that third pairing. I like Mac Hollowell, and if they sheltered his minutes, it could work in short periods of time. Any length of time or any big minutes would expose him. He's a scrappy guy with really good vision, skates, and hands. He just can lose the thread in the defensive zone, which is bad news for a defenseman. Gable Fisk says, you're welcome to move to Vegas. It neither snows nor rains here. Oh, Gable, believe me. Oh, I think about it a few times a week. Anywho, my question, the other Sebastian Aho stashed in Wilkes-Barre, could he possibly be any worse than Grizzly? He could be. I don't know. But the fact that he's injured, I think, has prevented the Penguins from checking that out. IR3K says, Carlson's transition ability has been amazing. You all are just ignoring that whole one-line thing, aren't you? You're ignoring the right short stuff, aren't you? Short questions, short answers, responses. He's really being the Carlson as advertised at least the last 5 games. The pass to Bunting, yes, was pretty spectacular. It was perfect. Okay. God, y'all are killing me. I'm going to scroll through until I find short ones. If you wrote a paragraph, I'm sorry, you lose your turn. Cal66. Reason, yes or no? I'm going to go ahead and say no. Listen, what is this desire to jump to the end of the movie, the end of the book? You don't always get the answer you want or the ending you want, and sometimes that's Okay, we are back. My apologies for that. I guess I went through a bit of a cell dead spot, and actually the roads are pretty good. It's just gray all around us, so I'm plenty good there. I do have to see when my exit is. Hope I don't miss it. Yeah, I-90 is coming up here in about 7 miles. That should be interesting. Anyway, bail on the season, Cal asks. Well, no. Why would you leap to the end? Do you need to know they're going to win the Stanley Cup to enjoy the season? Do you need to know they're going to win or lose any particular game to enjoy that game? No, go on the journey with them. This is going to be a very interesting and unique journey for the Penguins. I don't think they've ever been on quite the path they've been on. They were fighting against hope in, let's call it like 2003, 2004 to stay relevant with guys like Alexei Kovalev and Marty Straka, Robert Lang, and Mario was still like kind of playing out the string as absolute best he could. All of those sorts of things, made it for a I think, depressing season 20 years ago.
In 6.1 miles.
Yes.
Exit 178A, I-90 East, Port Buffalo.
You can tell exactly where I'm at, can't you? Just, what Dubas is going to do, how he's going to do it. I think that's going to be as big of the storyline this season as anything. And I think I think there's legitimate criticism about how he constructed this current team. I think there's legitimate argument that he should invest at least some assets in this team while trying to build for the future, because I think they have shown an ability to be competitive. They need a bit of a different construction, a bit of different chemistry to go on. Georgia says, Dan, be safe. Don't worry. I'm generally stupid and push my boundaries, but I'm not doing so yet. What's going on with Sid? 2 goals in his last 10 games. Yeah, he's in a funk. There's just no question he's in a funk. I don't see him getting chances either. Do you? It's just a thing, and he's been through this stuff before. I don't necessarily know if it's in his head yet or not. I liked Malkin beside him. Really liked putting a Kenny Malkin there. I think Sid does need some help driving the play. I think Malkin could do that. I don't think Rickard Rakell can do that. As good as Rakell is a great compliment. He's not a driver. And I think Sid needs some help driving. John says, if we can see which players suck, why can't the coach? Well, John, I'm going to say at least 50% of the time, if not 75 to 90, fans have it wrong. What do you want me to say on that one? I'm going to assume you're talking about, say, Matt Grzelcyk and not Kevin Hayes being in line. There just aren't any options for the Penguins. Brian Shea was mightily struggling on the right side. I like Brian Shea. Good guy, serviceable defenseman. But he was not getting the job done on the right side. And it threw everything else out of whack. And it made Ryan Graves' struggles even worse. And it had a domino effect. So what are you going to do? This is on Dubas, not on Sullivan, and I never presume that I'm smarter than the coaches. Too many times in my life, I've presumed, oh, well, I've got this figured out, and then a coach or somebody on inside explains something like, oh, that makes sense. And I feel dumb for my previous opinion. All right, Mark wrote a paragraph for me. I can't read it, Mark. Sorry. Got to keep it short, kids. I'm getting pelted with rock salt. Biggest need besides goaltending? Well, Cal, listen, Jarry had a bad game last night. The previous 5 or 6 games, the goaltending had been, borderline
1 mile.
spectacular.
Use the right lane to exit right to exit 178.
Georgia says, I'm glad Ned wasn't hurt. What kind of luck are the Penguins having? Twice now, Blake Lizotte has been beamed. Now Nedeljkovic gets beamed. And Ryan says you can't get Brunick till next year, right? Kind of. As things stand now, the Penguins can't call him up from juniors until the end of his junior season. But there's a loophole to everything, right? Oh, geez. Watch the tractor trailer almost put it on its side. that was a moment.
Exit right to exit 178, 8, I-90 east toward Buffalo.
There is the loophole for Harrison Brunick is the emergency recall. What would have to happen? Because I think there are 3 defensemen of Wilkes-Barre on NHL contracts. So, first of all, it's not going to happen. They're not going to be able to call him up until the end of the junior season. But let's just follow through on the loophole. The organization, I think, would have to have less than 7, maybe even, they'd have to have less than 7. Like, they could call up Brunick on an emergency basis if they only had 6 defensemen and he would make 7. Or maybe it's 5 and he would make 6. I'm unclear on the exact wording of the rule. But that's the way they could get Harrison Brunick up. I think if they knew that St. Ivany was going to struggle like he had, I do believe that they might have kept Brunick. But, hindsight's 20/20. And you can always go back and say, oh, we should have done this, we should have done that. It's not the worst thing in the world for Harrison Brunick to play one more year up there and be a leader and be the guy. He actually has a locker stall at UPMC Lemieux Complex right now because he's injured. And I saw him the other day at the UPMC kind of walking through the public area. I was like, wait, what the heck? I know other players, I can't speak to Brunick. Other players have come to Pittsburgh to be treated medically and go through some training regimens, kind of do some learning, and the team has taken the opportunity then to have them around the NHL club, for that reason. He's certainly not participating in anything. IR3 says, I thought the Rangers were a gong show. Oh, my thoughts on the Rangers gong show? Yeah. It can unravel quickly. And the Rangers are unraveling. They don't have one player that they can rely on in their lineup to get them through bad times. They really were kind of an ensemble cast with a great goaltender. Once that trade memo went out, they were fighting to get it together, right? Once that trade memo got leaked, they unraveled, they fell apart. It happens to different teams. The Penguins fell apart at the end 2 years ago, the end of 22-23. For whatever reason, it just went kapoof. Just, no. And you look at them on paper and say, why? It happens. Sometimes you have to shuffle the deck. And GM Chris Drury certainly learned a lesson about sending a league-wide memo. That's for darn sure. So let me see if I have any more questions. Thoughts on the Gabriel Landeskog situation in Colorado? If there are any new updates on Landy, I don't know them, but I know he's been fighting to come back and trying to get there, and even skating, a month ago. Yeah, listen, there's not much a team can do when a player really wants to come back. Now, if there's new updates, if he's scoring 3 goals or something, I certainly missed it. Let's see here. Yeah, 91 is not smooth. Do players ever get annoyed with you in person if you have criticized them? Great question, Steve. Yeah. There's no question Mike Sullivan has been annoyed with me numerous times, and so that's why I laugh when people are like, "You're buddies with Sullivan." Yeah, furthest from the truth. I just keep it honest. I keep it real. My rule is if I have to criticize a player, I have to be able to back it up. And it can't ever be personal. Like honest to goodness, the Tristan Jarry stuff from Tuesday night, that bordered on the personal because the criticisms of Jarry, from what I reported, I knew were going to be personal, right? And listen, we're also not stupid. If a player might have a bone to pick with you, or be a little sensitive about an issue, maybe you don't walk over and talk to them the next day. By the same token, I make myself available. I do my job. Remember last year, Sid kind of was pretty annoyed with me on camera up in Edmonton. He and I talked it out. I don't know that he understood my position as well as I understood his, but he's Sidney Crosby and I'm only me. So he gets the W on that one. Yeah, it certainly happens. I'm trying to think of, that was a few years ago when Josh reported the Jack Johnson trade talk. So I wandered over. Jack Johnson was another guy that fans just crucified me over defending. And now a lot of people look back and go, oh, well, this team could use Jack Johnson. Sometimes the high priests of Penguins Twitter are not the best sources of information. But I wandered over and talked to Jack Johnson. I said, hearing the trade rumors and how does that sit with you? And he said, no, there are no rumors. There have been no talks. I have not been asked to go anywhere. It's all false. Okay. So in this case, I was a conduit to basically report a story contrary to a colleague's. And that wasn't pleasant for me. It surely wasn't pleasant. So let's see here. Do we have any other questions? I'm trying to scroll down. Here, I'm going to make this the last one. If I were in Dubas's chair, what's my first move? My first move in Dubas's chair is to scour the market, and I keep meaning to do this. I just really haven't had the time. You're like, Dan, you've only written a couple articles in the last, 48 hours. I think I only wrote 4, and I should have written 8, really. I really need to do a deep dive into available defensemen. Not the big names that you all know, but the depth guys who might be able to come in and play third pairing. That's the guy I think the Penguins can afford, and and can use. That's my first move, is to shore up the defense. If I'm being honest here, if Marcus Pettersson doesn't get a first-round pick or a pretty good prospect, I sign him. Full stop. Because I do think the Penguins locker room is going to need guys like Marcus Pettersson to get from this get through the transition from this era to the next. And Pettersson would be a guy I'd want helping that transition. So those are kind of the first couple of moves. I must say, I would also pick up the phone and call Toronto and find out just what the hell they want for for Nick Robertson. I would also do some internal investigations into Trevor Zegras. I'm not saying I would acquire Zegras. I'm saying I would investigate some of the rumors and some of the negativity surrounding him, his maturity, and so forth. So those are the things that I would do. I would, I suppose I would ask a few of the veterans with no movement clauses just how bad things could get before they tapped out. And yeah, I guess last thing I would do, I definitely would judge their pain tolerance. Ooh, look at that. I'm glad I'm staying behind somebody speeding, because that's 2 police officers in about a mile. I swear I'm not speeding. Wink, wink. Okay, is that the final question? Yeah, it certainly looks like it. I appreciate you all keeping the questions short. I apologize for blowing past a couple of the paragraphs. That's 37 minutes, right? I fulfilled my obligation, have I not? Maybe if you want, we'll do another one for Montreal, but hotel Wi-Fi's are so sketch, and I can't burn up cell phone data in Canada. I only get 15 gigabytes a month, and I go through that just navigating from here to there. So, or I have to navigate across Canada, like Montreal. I'm staying in a little town, by the way. A little recommendation for yins: if you want a great little hidden vacation spot, just for like a weekend or something, like 3 days, go to Brockville, Ontario. It's a rough little town, but also right on the lake up there. Gorgeous. It also has some grit. It's got a brewery that's affordable, a pool hall, a couple little restaurants, a pizza place. And it's, an hour and a half from Montreal. It's 45 minutes from Ottawa. Perfect. You can be in and out of, and so it goes. I'm actually staying in Montreal for a couple of days just because I didn't want to have to drive back and forth for 2 days. Okay, that's it for me. I appreciate you. Thanks much. I guess if the snow is hitting you, stay inside, dummies. Otherwise, have fun.